Hi, everybody, and welcome to various spots across the United States. We've leapt forward to the month of April, and you and the rest of your brethren are joining us for a recap of the Fasig-Tipton sale that just took place down in Miami, Hallandale Beach, Fort Lauderdale, whichever those climbs you really want to assess with the Fasig-Tipton 2-year-old in training sale. It was a hot weekend and week down in Florida. It was a super hot sale on a number of different fronts. First and foremost, I think it was really, really strong in terms of the horses that were purchased, not just by West Point, but by the racing population in general, the buyers that were down there. And it was also a hot sale in general because some of the sires have really started to percolate and become extremely sought after and hot in that regard. We bought 3 horses from that sale. One filly by Liam's Map that we'll talk about going forward is sold out, and 2 colts, one by Outwork and the other by Nyquist, are darn near sold out. 7.5% or 5% is where I saw them on the spreadsheet just most recently. And that is such a tribute to our partners, their enthusiasm. We'll talk more in depth about each one of these horses as we go through the list. But in general, what can we say? Our partners are outstanding. They're enthusiastic. They have supported us in such a great way already this year. The one thing that I wanted to point out to some people is, these horses are largely going to, from the first 2 sales, they're largely going to some of the guys on the East Coast, including Todd Pletcher, who's getting a bunch of them. We'll explain why in a little bit. But if you're like me, you love racing with Dallas Stewart, Dale Romans, Greg Foley, maybe. You like racing in the Midwest, or you like racing on the West Coast with John Sheriffs and John Sadler. Do not worry. We've got another huge sale at the end of the month, and that's where our focus is going to be in terms of getting those operations loaded up with 2-year-olds from 2021. I'm going to check to see if Terry Finley is available just to kind of touch base and talk about his perspective from the sale. He's at Keeneland, which is why you might hear some noise in the background. We're going to run Lady Traveler in the Grade 3 Beaumont Stakes just in a few races from now. But Terry, if you're there and you can hop in without a lot of chaos, have at it.
I'm here, Jeff. I'm here. Thank you to the partners for jumping on, and to the partners who have supported us with the 3 horses that we got out of this sale. Just very, very happy. And we joined forces with some incredible operations with Vinny Viola and St. Elias and Mike Rapoli and Spencer Farm on those 3. So we were, very, very impressed with the catalog when it first came out about 45 days ago. We knew that the pedigrees were there, and we knew that the physicals were there, and we saw exactly what we thought we were going to see when we got there on the ground over a week ago. So we're tickled pink, and look, we know that we're in a game where you have to have a lot of hope and you have to dream, and these are the kind of prospects that put you in a position where you can dream the impossible dream, and that's what we're doing with this group, as well as the horses that we buy. It's a tough game overall to own horses, but we love it, and we're taking swings at the top, and again, we just appreciate the support of our partners, Jeff.
Thanks very much, Terry, and good luck, and we'll get you out of here in time to get to the paddock for the Beaumont Stakes. We're going to turn it over also right now to David and Gordo, also at Keeneland this afternoon, running 3 of his horses. Yes, he's a horse owner, as well as the best bloodstock agent in the country, as well as a guy who arranges all of the great matings for Lane's End clients and his clients. But he also owns, and let's face it, does a little training on the side as well. He's at Keeneland, so his beautiful face is not going to be on camera. But David, I want to bring you in here, and I want to talk a bit about sort of your lasting impression of this sale and how we did as a team. So, have at it.
Thanks, Jeff. I thought our March sale, Terry and I were talking, just before we left the other day how well we did there, and to follow it up with how well we did at Fasig. We didn't by the numbers, but a place like that, the quality depth of the stock, the money there for us to get a hold of the ones we did, and Terry be able to put the partnerships together with the industry players on some of those bigger Colts and Phillies we got a hold of. You know, we're in the zone right now. I can't wait to get to OBS and fill some more orders up for those other trainers like you were talking about. But right now we're pitching a very good first two innings of the year.
What's your sense about that April sale? And we've discussed it on prior Zoom calls with people. It's it's the sale that gives you soup to nuts. You've got 1,200, 1,300 or more horses that are cataloged. I think going into it hoping to get half a dozen, maybe a few more out of it. Is that going to be doable in the environment that we see this year for the prices we want to stay relatively close to?
Listen, if you told me, David, there's two sales you can go to every year and that's it, you got to go fishing the rest of the time, I would come to Keeneland September and the OBS April sale. And we've, like I say, we've pitched two perfect innings coming out of Fasig down there in Miami. And now we're rolling into April, on all our pre-looks, all of our usual suspects of consigners, and one of our favorite guys in like a Dave McCaffin, they only sell in April. A guy I'm fond of, Dr. Eisman, only sells at April. So we're going to see some really, really top horses and see them in volume at this next coming sale.
Awesome. Well, let's talk about the three newcomers that we join our 2-year-old class with. The first one is a colt by Outwork. Out of a mare, Says Who. He's a colt that's going to be trained by Todd Pletcher, and that is very significant because Todd Pletcher trained both the sire and the sire's sire, Outwork by Uncle Mo. Todd's the man who operates the leading stable of all time in terms of money won. He trained Outwork. He won both the Wood Memorial Stakes with Outwork, and he's won the Kentucky Derby, obviously, a number of times, not with Outwork, but he was a starter for Todd. And he's also trainer, as I mentioned, of Uncle Mo, who has become a sire of sires. Talking third generation here. Outwork was Uncle Mo's first runner and first winner. And a reminder again, we've got about 5% remaining on this colt. Now, here is Outwork winning the Wood Memorial Stakes. It's a beautiful shot on what wasn't really a beautiful day. I mean, it's tough weather sometimes this time of year in April on Long Island. So it was kind of a sloppy racetrack that day, but it was a beautiful win. And Outwork is at Windstar Farm in Kentucky. He was 2020's number 1 second crop sire by the number of black type horses and number 2 by the number of black type winners. So he's off to a tremendous start. We bought this colt, as Terry kind of talked about, in partnership with two of the most respected owners in the game, Vinny Viola of St. Elias Stables. And of course, he's got one of the favorites for the Kentucky Derby this year, and Mike Rapoli of Rapoli Stable. Vinny and Mike recently campaigned Breeders' Cup Classic winner Vino Rosso together. They've become a powerhouse partnership, and they were delighted to bring us in. Speaking of which, I'm going to bring somebody else in, one of the newest members of our team, or the newest member of our team, Jason Blewett, just to talk about his relationship with Mike and his thoughts on the Outwork and this colt. Mike and Jason, you guys have been really close friends over the years, and Jason was kind of instrumental in getting us an opportunity to work with this colt. That's a lovely photo, Jason, of you and Mike.
Right. Yeah. Thanks, Jeff. That's actually from this past Pegasus Day. And, I've known Mike almost 20 years at this point. It's a long story, but, we've been very close and, kind of have like a big brother type vibe with him. But, Pegasus Day wound up being real fast my last day working for the Strana Group and, being the lead TV host at Gulfstream. And, Mike opted to come down his first trip to Gulfstream in, I think, 8 or 9 years. So that was not a track he frequented all that often. So it was a combination of him having always shopping in one of the undercard stakes and wanting to be there for my last day. So that was a special day. We wound up winning Rapoli's stable a couple of races. But, again, the outwork cult going back to the Monday breeze and then like the Tuesday evaluations at Gulfstream, you could tell this horse was and is an athlete, and there was going to be a lot of electricity and attention, paid on him. And off that, wound up texting Mike Wednesday morning, the morning of the sale, and just said, hey, we're interested in hip 10. Are you? Fully well knowing that I'm sure, Todd and Mike Rapoli's team was interested in the horse. And he got back to me and I said, well, it'd be great. If you and Vinny are thinking about Vinny Viola, thinking about bidding, let's potentially partner up. Mike took the initiative, texted Vinny texted Terry, and it feels good to have had a little bit of a hand in that. And I'll wrap up by saying, even before we decided to go partners on this colt, Mike got back to me and said, Todd's seen just about all the outworks that have gone through public auction. I mean, he's got 2 crops and a lot of young horses. He said this hip 10 out of the Yes It's True dam is the nicest outwork colt or filly that he has seen so far. So I thought that was a great vote of confidence. And, Mike's not a guy that suffers fools. I mean, he just doesn't. And I know even before I agreed to take the gig with West Point, Mike has the utmost respect for Terry, for the entire team, for West Point Thoroughbreds. So, he was itching to get a horse together, and I'm glad it only took the second sale of the season for all of us to get on board together, which is really exciting. And, having watched Outwork, and I'll wrap up because I could keep going on and on, but, having watched Outwork from his first start through the Wood Memorial, and I was at the Kentucky Derby he ran in, it's been neat seeing the sons of Uncle Mo just dominate. I mean, Uncle Mo has quickly turned into, Jeff, as you're aware, a sire of sires. And already, I mean, even looking at his first crop runners last year or first crop standings, I mean, Uncle Mo had 3 of the top 4 sires in the country.
Well, we're going to talk about another one coming up here in Nyquist, but I think you're locked in. It's a wonderful partnership, each of us owning a third of this colt, and we're delighted, and we hope the karma really works to perfection here. David, what about this Colts breeze? Went 10-1, but what else can you tell me about it?
It was as smooth as could be, and he galloped out strong. And then when we saw him before the sale. Mike and I go around. Terry came with us. We pick out the athletes ahead of time, hoping that their breezes match up to their physicals. This horse exceeded it, quite frankly. And you can tell by the sales price. We were not the only people enamored with the horse, but the team had was going to dig a little deeper with all the things we discussed earlier between Mike and Vinny, Todd, having trained the horse and having the input on the physical. I haven't looked as many outworks as Todd, but this horse is way better looking than any of the ones I'd seen. And he was a brilliant horse himself. So the work was smooth, strong, effortless, and the gallop out was very good.
This horse wasn't cheap, and this sale is not cheap. But David, I figure, it's better to be with him than to fight against him and bid against him. Did we get a little bit of a discount given the fact that, 3 players played together rather than against each other?
Here's what I'm thinking. I'd rather see him in our silks or in the team colors at Saratoga than see him in somebody else's barn with us having to run against him. So that's how I look at that, if that makes sense.
No, it totally does. And as we see some videotape of this horse on the walk, I just want to say that, this is not the first go round, understandably, that we've had with our friend Vinny Viola. Understandably, we campaigned Always Dreaming with him and a number of other successful horses. But, you tend to think about the Kentucky Derby winner first and foremost as we look at the pedigree on this colt. As we mentioned, he's by Outwork. He's out of a Yes It's True mare. And David, you've always talked about how you like to have that little zippity-doo somewhere in the pedigree if you've got 2 turns on one side. That works pretty well here.
Yes is True is a value broodmare sire. He died a little bit young in his career. Yes, it's True on the female side is always a big positive to me, and a lot of this physical, a lot of the athleticism for me is coming from Yes, it's True's part in the pedigree.
We're going to move on to the next of the three. So the second of the three horses. We're going to talk about a horse that is flat out stunning, jaw dropping, a colt by Nyquist, also going to Todd Pletcher. We've only got, I think, 5%, maybe 7.5% remaining of this colt. And he is in partnership with another heavyweight in the racing game, B. Wayne Hughes' Spendthrift Farm. And I'm going to bring David in a little bit later about sort of what that means. But Nyquist is the hottest young sire in the game right now, and for good reason. He's had 2 first crop Grade 1 winners in the Breeders' Cup winner, the filly Vequist and Gretzky the Great. He's a son of Uncle Mo. His 2-year-olds have already been in high demand because the sales topper was by Nyquist. $2.7 million. And, you can argue whether we got the better looking one than the other one. Obviously we're biased, but this is a colt that comes from a new and absolutely white hot stallion. And I'm going to bring Terry, if you can you come on back and talk a bit about Spendthrift and how this kind of percolated, because it's, understandably a tremendous working partner to have. Oh, we may have Terry on mute, and for good reason. It's probably pretty loud where he is. So one thing I can talk about, just having discussed things with Terry, is that, we've known the general manager over there, Ned Toffey, for a number of years. We've had a few horses together, and it was not absolutely destined that we went into the sale, meaning over the weekend, we're going to buy something together, but we're always looking to partner up. And we've done this on a couple of occasions. We did really the morning into the afternoon before the sale started, kind of get together with Spendthrift and say, let's go in on hip number 29, which now I'm going to bring in David a little bit. We love this colt, David, but he was not on our absolute short list because we just didn't think we could afford him. Wasn't that the case?
Yeah, I mean, when we were looking around at those higher end horses, this guy, I preferred him physically to the one that topped the sale. And, when this opportunity came up, it was one of those no brainers. We can partner with Spendthrift, have half of a horse that's, an Adonis, and make it all work out really to our benefit. Terry jumped on it as he always does. And we've got this guy in the barn and all the stars aligned.
When you go together with a farm that's known, first of all, they won the Kentucky Derby last year with Authentic, and also is looking to, to build their stallion base with colts that they buy. Isn't it almost a no-brainer that when you buy something that is this gorgeous and understandably has tons of talent, that they're hoping to get a stallion out of it? Isn't that the case, David?
I would say the majority of their high dollar purchase colts are with the idea to have residual value as a stallion. So, right away they were trying to buy a horse, as are we, just with a little different bank account sometimes, to B. Wayne Hughes has, to buy a horse to go to be a stallion if they hit all the hoops and perform at the track. And, and like any time we use that draft analogy, I should say, this guy was a top draft. And if we use that draft analogy, for the money we paid, I would rather have this horse than the one that brought the 2.6 million.
Right, 2.6 million for the other Nyquist. Let's watch the stretch run of the 2016 Kentucky Derby. Because it is that time of the year where watching Derby replays kind of gives you all that big rush. But this is Nyquist beating a field that was outstanding, including Outwork and Gunrunner.
Nyquist has taken the lead on the outside. Gunrunner second at the rail. 5 lengths back to Destin in third. And they come to the final furlong. Exaggerator is closing in. Nyquist to catch with a 16th to go. Gunrunner, Exaggerator on the
I cannot wait, and I hope we're part of it again this year. But that was the stretch drive of the 2016 Kentucky Derby, and understandably, we're partnering up with the guys that won last year. We're partnering up with a colt who's sired by a Kentucky Derby winner, and that's that's what you dream here. If we want, we can go, and I see we're now looking at the Breeze. And David, this is your bailiwick. Tell me about his Breeze and your first and second impressions about it.
It's just the way he did it, the power he uses behind, the thrust he creates to make that big long stride, and he does it easy. He's a big horse, so those kind of big horse go two ways. They can be heavy as a ton of bricks, or they can be like him and float over the ground. I think of like a Jerome Bettis, big man that can move fast. This is a big man that can move fast.
Well, I can add my own stride analysis information. This was more than 3/4 of a foot above the average for the sale. And understandably, there were some tremendous horses at this sale that had very long stride lengths, but his was better than most. And that's what put him in the Group 1 category, along with the Outwork, who was also in the Group 1 category. You can see he's got a great push from behind, stretchy, beautiful, just a total package of a colt. His pedigree, he's out of a Malibu Moon mare, bred on a similar cross as Nyquist's 2 Grade 1 winners from his first crop. And just as I mentioned, this is a reminder, there's not much left of him. If you want to get in on something that is a collector's item, get your West Point Thoroughbreds rep, and if you want to get involved with a colt by one of the hottest sires around. We're going to move now to our filly, who is sold out. This is the filly by Liam's Map that we bought in partnership with St. Elias Stables, with Vinnie Viola's St. Elias Stables, also to be trained by Todd Pletcher. Another tremendously white hot sire. Liam's Map's coming off a banner weekend with 3 stakes winners on Florida Derby Day at Gulfstream, and his son Colonel Liam is a recent winner of the Grade 1 Pegasus Turf. David, you know Liam's Map well. He stands at Lane's End, and some may say he got off to kind of a slow, maybe just a moderate start at stud, but he's really picked up speed over the past several weeks. And I know, as stallion managers, you all can't fall in love with horses. You give them the time, but you can't fall in love with them. Is he starting to be, what you'd hoped he would be?
1,000%. And we're such a fickle business. He had 2 Grade 1 winning 2-year-olds in his first crop, and one of those horses won again last weekend. And then he had a 3rd Grade 1 winner from his first crop of the horse that won the Pegasus Turf. So you're right. We were all like, oh well, because he had such high expectations. But to be more fair to him, and I'm going to defend him a little bit, he has done quite a lot, and he's really hit my radar now because they're brilliant, hard trying horses, colts or fillies. And this particular filly, we tried to buy her as a yearling, and she brought a good bit of money. And it's a lovely pedigree, and I feel like we got her a little bit under market value. I thought she'd bring more, so I thought this was a well-bred filly. If we get some black type on her, it's got tremendous residual value.
That's the other thing that we think about, especially when you come out of a sale like this one, where the pedigrees are, understandably very select. There were only, David, what do you think? There's maybe 120 horses that eventually went through the ring, or maybe even fewer than that.
Yeah, somewhere in those lines, because you started with a catalog of around 160, 180. Attrition of one way or another they get a certain amount actually got to the sales grounds, and then as you weed through them, a select sale like this is a challenge to put on for the guys at Fasig, because much like Saratoga, there's some horses there that they were never going to be our kind of horse or any of the major guys. So when you get down to it, there were 50 horses really that fit the grade, and this filly would clearly be one of those kind.
Her Breeze was outstanding. She covered 1/8 of a mile in 10 flat, galloped it out, amazingly well, above average Breeze figure above average stride length for her. and she galloped out beautifully past the wire. I think, one of the things that struck a lot of people was just her mental game back at the barn, but you see it in the breeze as well. She has just a real presence to her. She's a real, as David terms it, queen. She's got such charisma and behaved beautifully and understandably as we, have a relationship with Eddie. And also David has a wonderful relationship with Eddie. Had a chance to see her on the farm before, in the training center, before she went to the sales ring down in Miami. And I know that Vinny Viola bred the filly, sold her for very good money as a weanling. Then when he saw her at the sale, fell in love with her all over again and just had to have her back. It's a wacky business, but if you have the kind of wallet size that Mr. Viola does, you can do those sort of things. And I know that you asked Eddie, or Terry asked Eddie Woods for some advice as to whether he should jump in for a piece of her. And Eddie's response was, "Go, lad, go now." So that's really this filly in a nutshell. She's an absolute queen and so pretty. Well, the slide is indicative that we're ready for questions. If anybody has any on the 3 horses that we picked up at the sale, and just know that the gentleman who is adjusting his glasses and there in the beautiful sunshine, but cold sunshine out in the box area at Keeneland, or maybe you look closer to the paddock now, I think, David.
Or I'm down in my natural habitat, these sales barns.
Oh, there you go. So he found a quiet spot. We are able to take questions, and we've got, sort of the 8th race on our minds with Lady Traveler and the Beaumont. But until then, we can certainly field any questions from anybody as we finish up the first 2 sales and finish up specifically this sale in spectacular fashion. I'm going to start off as we, prompt people to either hit the chat or the Q&A, or if they want to talk, they can unmute themselves on Zoom or hit *6 on their phone. But David, just about every trainer in this business that's, high profile, and Todd Pletcher's certainly high profile. What's his approach with his 2-year-olds? Like, where would they go first? Would all of them go up to, say, Saratoga and then sort of begin their process with him?
So ours, I think we gave them a little time on the farm, and then they'll go up to Todd, probably in the next few weeks. Once they got everything organized up there, they'll gather them all up. It's like gathering your army. And then it's like every week, they have these little matches between all their different prospects. And Todd has a phenomenal advantage over a lot of people because he has a large number of, he's a Nick Saban of these trainers. They're all 5-star recruits, and he's 5 deep at every position. So he can match them up, see where he's at, see who needs time, who needs to go forward. It's exceptionally impressive operation. And I would call him probably the master trainer at doing this. And certainly in the top 2 or 3 in the country that get these horses ready for the Saratoga and the big glamour meets.
He manages a very large stable, and it's amazing how well he manages from both a big picture and a hands-on perspective. It's incredible. We would expect the Colts probably to be with him sooner because the filly's going to have a couple of ankle flakes taken out, one on each ankle, but she'll be with Todd probably later in the summer, and the Colts will go when he's ready to get them, but it's probably sooner rather than later. The one thing I can answer, one of the questions that popped up, and that would be from Paul Farr. Can we discuss the percentages that we own of each one of these horses? Okay, so we own 50% of the Nyquist colt with Spendthrift owning the other half. We own a third with Mike Rapoli and Vinny Viola each on the Outwork colt, and then we own a leg, or 25%, of the Liam's Map filly. Paul, that's Paul and the rest of the team. That's what we've got. Another question from Chuck. Let's see. Question about a relatively high number of horses were pulled from this particular auction. What are the most common reasons for that? David, I'll let you handle that, since you've been to 800 gazillion sales. What's the biggest factor in a horse being pulled from an auction, though cataloged?
So you got to remember, these are performance sales, much different than the yearling sale, which is an athletic beauty contest. So these horses have to breeze well. They have to meet the criteria back when we look at them post breeze. And then the third criteria is when we send our veterinarians over there. And you've heard me tell Dr. Latson, no whammies here, no whammies. I want to buy the horse. And Keith says, well, David, you're not going to like what I got to say next. So that third part is really one of the key criteria. Horses get injured in these things. Some of the injuries are they're non-issues in the career of the horse, but the buyers are demanding. So a chip surgery is a $1,500 surgery in 60 days rehab. And I've seen horses get discounted hundreds of thousands of dollars for that. Makes no sense. Terry gives us a lot of latitude, and he's so skilled from doing this so long. He knows what we can live with and can't. And it allows us to make very good buys. A lot of people are slaves to what those vets say. I got to have a perfect horse, and it creates scratches in the marketplace, an opportunity for us. And a lot of times we've gone back and told somebody, well, wait a minute, we get it at a discount. It works out to our advantage. But the main reason, my long-winded answer, will be mostly the performance. Number one, the horse doesn't work fast enough, but a lot of times it's the vet issues that they may perceivedly have.
Thank you, David. Appreciate that. So a question from Mike. He said, selfish question here. I missed the OBS recap call. Any chance you could give a quick dramedy colt recap and how we feel about him? He's asking selfishly. No worries. The dramedy colts, very quickly, Mike, he's with Steve Asmussen. He's at Keeneland now. We've got some pictures on the chatter site and on the website on the updates. Doing great. So life is good, and he's pressing forward, which is lovely. Let me see here. Any more questions on chat or Q&A? Nothing on chat, nothing on Q&A. Well, I might have another question. Nope. So if you have a question, now's your chance. Otherwise, we're gonna wrap things up and get ready for the Beaumont. Again, unmute yourself on Zoom, ask a Q&A or a chat question, and then we'll effort to answer it. Trey Gordon, to all the partners, is a flake different than a chip? Yes, it is, but both are, especially in the ankle, most of the time non-issue. So David, talk a bit about that from a vet perspective.
Well, my vet, he's wised up, and when I can live with it, it's a flake. If it becomes more serious, it's a chip. They're one and the same at the end of the day, but kidding aside, a flake is a very small, as the word sounds, a small piece of bone out of there. A chip can vary in size from a flake to something way more significant, where a large section of bone could have broken off. And then even if you take it out surgically, the divot or the deficit that may be left in the bone, the cartilage, wherever the location may be, is going to cause, a caustic area, because these are all in joints. So there's movement, and that can be a lot worse. So, all chips are not the same, but that's about the difference.
And the smart move most of the time is to, right after the sale, sort of pop it out and get moving forward. It will not take very long. Most of these horses, that if they have a little bit of that type of a procedure done, they will be racing, in the fall or late part of the summer.
For a horse, it's like us having a wisdom tooth out. It's a very, very minor procedure. I mean, they wheel these horses in and out today. And the medicine and the aftercare is so good. Really, it doesn't hurt. It's probably not a bad thing for the horse to have that happen. Get a little 60 days and a little break, and on they go.
Let me check and see if we've got any more questions. Thanks for that, Trey. Chat or unmute yourself or Q&A. I know let's see, we're about, what is it? Tom Bellhouse or anybody else who knows, when does the Beaumont go off? 4:30?
7.
We're in the 7th race right
No,
now?
it goes off at 57.
Oh, okay, we're good. All right, let me ask, anybody else? Chat, Q&A, *6, or ask a question live and in person. All right, well, I think that might be it. I don't see anything else popping up in the meantime. David, thank you for joining us. Enjoy.
All right.
I was joking earlier, welcome to, the center of horse racing, Norway, or thereabouts. It's bright.
It was a little cold getting off that plane from Miami yesterday. I'm not gonna lie.
Likewise. And out at Churchill Downs this morning, looking at some of the West Point runners out there, including Obezos, I was proud of myself. I wasn't happy that I had to put on a parka, but I was proud of myself. In the meantime, thank you to everyone. This call will be available, recorded and available for people who want to get some last minute research in if the horses are still available. But we thank everybody for joining in on a Friday afternoon, especially one where we're racing at Keeneland, and wish everyone who has horses in this weekend, especially those at Keeneland, all the best of luck. Thank you, and we'll see you at the next sale. Take care.